The repair bay smelled faintly of burnt ozone and the tang of alien blood. I was used to both. Being a combat engineer meant living at the intersection of destruction and survival. Patching up machines, patching up men, patching up anything that could be made whole enough to fight another day. But I had never repaired this. The armor was unlike any human fabrication. Its plates shimmered like liquid crystal, flowing and locking together as though they were alive. They bore deep rents from plasma fire, each scar sizzling faintly as the material tried and failed to knit itself shut. My scanners couldn't read it. My tools fought me at every step. And inside the armor was someone, or rather something, that most of my people had been taught to fear since childhood. The Queen of the X-Way. Tall, impossibly tall, with eyes like burning violet suns. She had been carried into my bay on a stretcher of living tendrils. Her guards, more like a hive of sentient shadows, had wordlessly deposited her and then melted back into the dark corners of the hangar, leaving me alone with the towering figure. "You are the engineer," she said, her voice resonant even in weakness. "Not a question. Decree." I swallowed. "Yes. And you're her." "The sovereign of the 1,000 hives," she confirmed, lids narrowing. "The one you call queen." I hesitated, tools hovering uselessly in my hands. Every story, every briefing, every nightmare of the last war told me that touching her was sacrilege, suicide, or both. The X-Age queens commanded entire fleets through psychic resonance. To harm one was to invite annihilation. To serve one, well, no human had ever been this close. And yet she was bleeding out on my table. "Her armor sustains her life," one of the guards had said before vanishing. "Mend it, or she perishes." No pressure. The beginning. The war between humans and the X-Age had ended 5 years ago, though ended was the polite word. It had burned itself into stalemate, a bleeding wound neither side could close. The fragile peace we clung to was patched together from treaties no one fully trusted. The only reason it held was because both sides had suffered losses too catastrophic to repeat. I had been part of the last offensive, one of the unlucky survivors when the flagship Unity was cut in half by a X-Age carrier. Ever since then, I'd repaired ships at the edge of contested space. We were supposed to keep the fleets running, maintain the truce, avoid provocation. But then an X-Age envoy ship had limped into orbit, broadcasting distress. Its queen was wounded, critically. And somehow, through what I assumed was political insanity or cosmic joke, I had been chosen to try to save her. The first thing I learned was that her armor wasn't armor at all. It was a symbiotic organism, part machine, part living exoskeleton. When I peeled back one shattered plate, it hissed and bled bioluminescent fluid. She flinched, just slightly, but enough. "You can feel this?" I asked, startled. Her eyes flicked toward me, narrowing to slits of violet fire. "It is me. There is no separation. Mend me carefully, human." "Carefully, but..." My hands shook as I adjusted the nanosealer, tuning it down to the lowest possible setting. I worked through layers of material, coaxing the alien tissue to accept bonding agents it instinctively rejected. All the while, her breathing grew shallower. Hours passed. Sweat pooled at the base of my neck. I could feel her watching me, not just with her eyes but with something deeper, as though every adjustment of my tools echoed across her nervous system. Then she leaned forward. Her face, regal and strange, drew close enough that I could see the fine patterns etched into her skin, markings that glowed faintly with each heartbeat. "Do you know why I allowed this?" she whispered. Froze. "Because your armor needed repair." A smile ghosted across her lips. Not kind, not cruel. Just knowing. "Because you were the only one whose hands did not tremble when I entered. You fear me, yes. But you do not worship your fear. That is rare among your kind. I swallowed. I'm just doing my job. No, she breathed. You are building a bridge. The middle. The repairs stretched into days. Her guards never spoke. They hovered at the edges like phantoms, but their silence only deepened the strange intimacy of the task. I learned more about her armor than I'd ever wanted. It was alive, yes, but not fully. It was a symbiotic shell that merged with her biology, amplifying her psychic resonance. When the plates were cracked, it was like exposing nerves. When they shattered, it was like breaking bones. As I worked, she spoke. At first in fragments, then in stories. She told me of the exoid homeworld, a place of endless oceans and sky-born hives suspended on leviathans. She told me how the queens were born not from mothers, but from a collective will, the hive mind crystallizing its intent into flesh. Each queen was both individual and chorus, sovereign and servant. You think of me as a monarch, she said one night, as I stitched glowing filaments across a rupture in her breastplate. But I am not singular. I am the mouthpiece of my people's endless hunger to endure. And yet you bleed, I murmured, tightening the seal. Her gaze flicked down to me. And yet I bleed. That is why you will never fully understand us. Or perhaps why you are the only ones who can. Despite myself, I began to feel, not comfortable exactly, but less terrified. There was something hypnotic about her presence. Her voice resonated like a low chord inside my chest, unsettling but strangely grounding. One evening, as I grafted new stabilizers into the damaged plating of her abdomen, she leaned closer again. Do you know, she whispered, what I see when I look into you? I hesitated. A terrified mechanic. Her lips curved. I see the fracture line of history. I see a species poised on the edge of extinction, or ascension. I see that you, unlike your leaders, understand that war cannot be endless. I wanted to argue, but her words pressed into me like gravity, undeniable. And then she said the unthinkable. When this armor is whole, when I return to my hive, I will tell them, ally with the humans, not as subjects, as equals. I froze, solder tool humming uselessly in my grip. That's impossible. It is inevitable, she countered softly. But only if you deliver me alive. The turning point. The attack came on the 6th day. Human raiders, our own people, breached the station. They weren't official military, but splinter groups who hated the fragile peace. To them, a wounded exo-age queen was the prize of a lifetime. The alarms blared. I grabbed a shock rifle from the wall, heart hammering. But when the blast doors shuddered under impacts, the queen rose from the table. Her armor was still incomplete, but enough had been restored that she towered, radiant and terrifying. Stay behind me, she ordered. For reasons I couldn't explain, I obeyed. The doors ruptured. Armed men poured in, their eyes burning with hatred. There she is, one shouted. End it now. The queen lifted her hand. The half-repaired plates along her arm flared, and a pulse of violet energy burst outward, slamming the attackers into walls like ragdolls. Screams echoed, weapons clattered. I had seen her people in battle before. I knew they were devastating. But to watch her fight while wounded, while barely standing, it was like watching a storm given flesh.